Daniel lived a simple life far from anything strange or exciting. He worked in a small repair station on the edge of the city. Machines made sense to him. They broke, he fixed them. That was his life. People came and went. Nothing ever changed. He liked it that way. He liked quiet places. He liked order. He liked the hum of engines that did not lie or pretend. But something had started to feel wrong. For the past few weeks, strange lights had appeared in the night sky. They would flash in strange colors and vanish before anyone else could see them. His neighbors laughed it off, but Daniel was not so sure. One night while walking home after a long shift, he saw something that stopped him in his tracks. The sky tore open like a curtain being pulled aside. It was not a storm or lightning. It was like space itself had opened up above his head. From the center of that silent storm, a shape came down, glowing bright and smooth like metal, but moving like a living thing. Before he could run, before he could shout, the air around him became heavy and still. He could not move. His legs refused to obey him. He floated upward like a leaf in slow wind. His heart raced, his mind screamed, but no sound came out. The world faded around him, and everything went black. When Daniel woke, he was lying on something soft and warm. The air smelled like flowers mixed with metal. He opened his eyes and saw a ceiling made of silver light and shifting patterns. Strange. Symbols floated in the air above him, moving like they were alive. He sat up slowly and looked around. The room was massive. It felt like he was inside a palace or temple. Then he saw them. Tall figures stood around him, women, not like any he had ever seen. Their skin glowed faintly like starlight. Their eyes were deep and sharp, like they could see through time. They wore armor that looked like it was made of crystal and fire. Their bodies were strong, built like warriors, but they moved with grace and silence. One of them stepped forward. She was taller than the rest. Her voice filled the room without needing to shout. "You are Daniel, the one chosen from Earth." He blinked, trying to speak, trying to understand. His voice came out rough. "Who are you? Where am I?" She raised a hand and the air shimmered. A screen appeared showing stars, planets, strange ships flying between worlds. "We are the Valari. Our kind has ruled this side of the galaxy for many lifetimes. We are warriors, builders, seekers of strength and wisdom. But now we face a threat. We cannot fight with weapons." She paused and looked at him, as if measuring his soul. "Our future is fading. Our bloodline weakens. No matter how strong our minds or bodies, we cannot survive without new life. We searched for many years across many worlds. Few were worthy. But then we found you." Daniel stared at her, lost in a sea of confusion. "I'm just a mechanic. I fix broken things." She stepped closer. Her eyes glowed with something like pride. "And that is why you were chosen. You create, you restore, you do not destroy. Our people need more than strength. We need balance. Your DNA holds the spark we seek. It is rare, it is human." Others murmured among themselves. Words he could not understand, but the tone was clear. Respect, curiosity, maybe even hope. Another woman stepped forward, younger and slightly shorter than the first. She smiled gently and spoke in a softer tone. "You are not a prisoner, Daniel. You have been honored. You may choose to leave when you understand the path before you. But know this. Many lives depend on your choice." He stood slowly, still unsure if this was a dream or something worse. "So what do you want from me?" The younger woman looked at him with something close to kindness. "We want you to help us live. To build a future across the stars, not as a tool. As a father, as a guide, as a partner in what comes next." Daniel's thoughts swirled. The world he knew was gone, replaced by this impossible reality. Alien warriors, starships, bloodlines, future generations. It felt too big, too strange, but something inside him whispered that maybe this was real. And maybe, just maybe, it was the start of something greater than he had ever imagined. Elder Valari spoke again, her voice echoing like thunder wrapped in silk. "Rest now, Daniel of Earth. Your trials will begin soon. And if your spirit is as strong As your blood, then you may yet help shape a new galaxy. The lights dimmed. The other warriors bowed their heads as they left the chamber one by one. The younger one remained for a moment longer, then turned and walked away, her armor shimmering like fire in the wind. Daniel stood alone beneath the stars carved into the ceiling, his heart heavy and mind spinning. Whatever this was, it had only just begun. Daniel woke in a new chamber, different from the last one. The floor looked like black glass but felt warm under his bare feet. The walls shimmered like the surface of water, reflecting colors that changed with every movement. Strange symbols hovered in the air again, pulsing like quiet heartbeats. He stood still, unsure what he was supposed to do next. Then a door opened without a sound. A new Villari woman entered, this one different from the others. She was younger, or perhaps just calmer. Her hair was tied back with silver cords, and her armor looked more like a uniform than battle gear. She carried no weapons but walked like someone trained in 1,000 battles. My name is Lyra. I will be your guide during the trials. Daniel watched her carefully but nodded. Her voice was firm but not harsh. She walked beside him without pressure and led him through long corridors filled with strange machines, glowing lines, and moving platforms. You will not be tested by strength alone, she said as they walked. We know you are not a warrior. Your value lies in other things. Thought, heart, will. Daniel kept silent. He was trying to understand his place here. One day ago, he was just another face in the crowd. Now he was walking inside a starship among alien leaders, being judged for traits he had never considered important. The first trial began inside a large hall filled with metal blocks floating in mid-air. Some spun slowly. Others darted around with strange patterns. This is the trial of balance, Lyra explained. You must reach the other side without touching the ground. Use the blocks. Trust your instinct. Daniel looked at the moving shapes and felt a twist in his stomach. He was no athlete. He could climb a ladder or fix a rooftop panel, but this was something else. Still, he took a breath and stepped onto the first block. It wobbled under his weight. He crouched low, then jumped to the next one. It slid sideways, but he caught the edge. His fingers burned, but he held on. He moved slow, steady, breathing deep with every step. The blocks moved faster. He adjusted, changed direction, used the spinning ones as launch points. He fell once, caught himself twice. He did not stop. When he finally reached the other side, his arms shook, his legs ached, but Lyra nodded with approval. Good. You adapt fast. That is rare. The next trial involved choices. Daniel was taken to a room with glowing orbs floating above stone pedestals. A voice filled the space, asking questions not with sound, but inside his thoughts. If you had to choose between saving a child or saving a city, what would you do? If someone betrayed you but begged for forgiveness, would you trust them again? If you were given power to change the fate of a world, would you take it or walk away? The questions came one after another. Some felt simple, others tore at his heart. He answered each with care, never rushing. Sometimes he chose the hard path, sometimes the kind one. When the questions stopped, the orbs faded, and Lyra stepped forward again. You are not perfect, she said, but you think. That matters more than being right. Then came the final test. Daniel was taken to a dark chamber where silence pressed like weight on his chest. A figure stood in the shadows, tall and armored with glowing red eyes. This is the trial of fear, Lyra whispered. It will show you your worst vision. You must face it. The figure stepped forward, and the room shifted. Suddenly, Daniel was no longer in the chamber. He was back on Earth, standing in the ruins of his workshop. Fire raged around him. Screams echoed from somewhere far. Machines lay broken, bodies unmoving. He saw himself alone, no one left. No one coming. He reached out, but his hands passed through everything like smoke. A voice filled his ears. You left your world, you abandoned your kind. You brought ruin by leaving. The words tore through him like knives. He dropped to his knees. But then he clenched his fists. He stood again. This is not real, the scene cracked like glass under pressure. The illusion shattered and the shadow figure vanished. The chamber returned. Lyra stood waiting, her expression unreadable. You saw what we all fear, she said. The fear of loss, of failure, of guilt, but you stood back up. That is strength we do not often see. He breathed deep, chest still shaking but steady. Again then something changed. A soft alarm rang through the hall. Lyra tensed. She touched a panel on her wrist and symbols danced across the screen. We have trouble, she said. Someone tried to access the DNA vault, unauthorized. That should not be possible. Daniel stepped closer, confused. What does that mean? She looked at him, her eyes sharper. Now it means someone may not want you here. Someone might fear what your presence could bring. He felt cold, despite the warm air. Why would anyone fear me? I'm just one man. You are more than that now, she said. To some you are hope. To others you are a threat to their control. They moved quickly through the ship, passing guards and sealed doors. Lyra led him to a hidden chamber where rows of glowing crystals floated behind shields. Your sample is still safe, she said after scanning the system. But this was not random. Someone knew where to strike. Daniel looked at the vault, then back at hers. Oh, what now? She turned to face him fully. Now we prepare. You passed the trials. But that was just the beginning. Others will test you next, not with questions, but with war. Daniel stood taller than before. He had faced fear, confusion, and doubt. And he was still standing. He did not know where this path would end. But he knew he would not walk away from it. Daniel sat alone in his quarters, high above a world he had never seen before. The starship hovered in orbit around a glowing blue planet with rings made of ice and stone. The view outside his window felt endless. But inside him something felt heavier than any sky. He had passed the trials. He had earned respect. Yet he felt no joy. Lyra entered without speaking. She placed a small container beside him, a warm drink with a strange scent. He picked it up slowly and took a sip. It tasted like something between honey and fire. You have been quiet all day, she said while watching the stars. I have too much to think about, he replied with a tired voice. Lyra sat beside him, hands resting on her knees. You have done more than any outsider before you. You have earned your place among us. Why does it feel like a burden? Daniel looked down at his hands. Hands that once turned bolts, fixed wires, patched broken things. Now those same hands were expected to shape futures. Because I never asked for this, he said. I never dreamed of space, never wished to be important. I had a small life, a simple one. Now you say I am the key to your people's survival. Lyra nodded slowly. We did not choose you for your wishes. We chose you for what you carry inside. And now you must choose whether to carry it forward or set it down. Daniel stood and walked toward the wide window. Stars blinked like tiny candles against the black. He placed his palm against the glass as if trying to touch the universe. If I agree, I can never return to Earth. Can I? Lyra stood behind him and said no more. Silence heavy like stone between them. He thought of his old home. The quiet tools, the broken radios he used to fix, the dusty shelves of forgotten machines, the small diner where he got coffee every morning, the neighbor who borrowed his wrench, the cat that always waited near his door. They would all fade, become stories without an ending. But then he remembered something else. He remembered the Valari children he had seen during his tour of the ship, small, bright-eyed, with glowing skin and gentle strength. He had watched them train, learn, laugh, stumble, and get back up. They had been born from science, not love, designed, not raised. Yet their hearts beat just like his. He remembered how one of them had run to him holding a broken toy, a simple sphere with spinning lights. Daniel had fixed it with wire and a smile. The child had hugged him with wonder. That moment returned to him now. That simple hug in a strange world. What if he could give them more? What if his presence meant future generations could be born with not just strength, but softness too? What if they could learn about kindness, jokes, patience, warmth? Lyra stepped closer as if sensing his thoughts. We do not want to use you, Daniel. We want to learn with you. You have already changed more than you know. He turned to face her, his eyes clearer than before. If I stay, it must be as a partner. Not a breeder, not a symbol, but someone who matters for more. Then what runs in his blood? Lyra nodded again, this time with something deeper in her eyes. Then we will walk together, not above, not below, but beside. A message arrived on her wrist console. Her face changed, eyes narrowing slightly. There is movement. From the outer sectors, she said, a rogue faction has learned of you. They believe our alliance is dangerous. They may try to act soon. Daniel let out a slow breath. So, it begins, not war yet, she said, but the shadow of Ith stepped away from the window, a new feeling rising in him, not fear, not regret, something closer to purpose. Then we prepare, he said. If I am part of this world now, then I will not stand still while it breaks later. That night he stood in a large chamber, filled with voices from across the ship, Valari leaders, scientists, elders, warriors, and young minds who watched him with silent curiosity. Empress entered, her steps strong and slow, her armor shining like a moon. She raised her voice for all to hear. The human has passed the trials. He has faced challenge, doubt, fear, and truth. Now he has chosen, not out of pride or duty, but from understanding. From this day forward, he is no longer outsider. Whispers moved through the chamber. Some faces showed surprise. Others respect, a few doubt. Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm but firm. I do not promise perfection. I promise effort. I will not pretend to understand everything about your people or your stars, but I will try. I will listen. I will build, not just with tools, but with care. The Empress lowered her head in approval. Then let the new path begin. Later, Lyra and Daniel walked through the quiet halls, the light low, the ship gently humming. You spoke well, she said. I spoke from truth, he replied. She smiled, then looked ahead. There is still danger. There are those who do not want change, who do not want humans to share the stars. Nodded. Let them try. Lyra stopped and turned to face him, her expression softer than usual. We are not asking you to fight. We are asking you to stay and to grow something with us, something that may last for ages. Daniel met her gaze and felt the weight of her words. Then let's grow it together. Far above the stars watched, silent and ancient as a mechanic from Earth chose not just a new world, but a new kind of future. Darkness rolled over the outer edge of the Valari star system like a slow-moving storm. Hidden within that shadow was a fleet not marked by any known symbol. Ships without names, shields without honor. This was no peaceful visit. This was not diplomacy. This was war arriving without warning. Inside the Valari command center, lights flashed across the walls, showing movements near. The moon lines of energy pulsing through space, sudden disruptions in the shield grid. Lyra stood before the main console, eyes sharp, voice steady. They are not sending signals, no demands, no warnings. They want to erase us quietly. Daniel entered the room wearing a uniform not built for war, but crafted for visibility. He had insisted on being part of the defense team, not to fight, but to stand with those who believed in him. His presence was now a message to allies and enemies alike. Lyra updated him on the situation. They have stealth technology not from any known empire. They are aiming directly for the DNA vault and the life chambers. This is not just an attack. It is a message against what you represent. Daniel looked at the projections, bright lines of energy mapping, danger in motion. The DNA vault contained his genetic code, the key to the next chapter of the Valari race. Destroying it would end all efforts of unity and change. We cannot let them reach it, he said, voice steady. We won't, Lyra replied. The Empress gave the order. A layered defense system would be activated. Fighters would guard the outer orbit, pulse cannons would block direct access, and Daniel would be moved to a protected command zone. Daniel disagreed. If they want me, then hiding sends the wrong signal. I will not be locked away while others bleed. Lyra hesitated, but then agreed. You will stay with me in the engineering deck. If anything breaks, we need someone who can fix it fast. And you know our systems better than most. Now the battle began before preparation finished. Enemy ships emerged from the dark void in sharp lines, engines burning silent and blue. Valari fighters launched like sparks from a flame, meeting them mid-space in a twisting storm of motion inside. The ship Daniel ran alongside Lyra through tight corridors, guiding energy flow, rerouting shields, sealing doors, and opening new power channels. Sweat covered his face, but his hands moved with precision. He was not a soldier, but this was his fight. The attackers had sent boarding pods, small, dark capsules that drilled through the outer hull with burning tips. One of them crashed into the secondary control room. Daniel and Lyra rushed there as alarms screamed around them. Inside, they found chaos, panels shattered, smoke rising. 2 Valari engineers were down, but alive. Daniel dragged one to safety, while Lyra took position near the entrance, weapon ready. A tall figure entered through the broken hatch, black armor, no insignia, heavy steps like falling metal. The enemy pointed a weapon at Daniel. But Lyra moved faster. Her blast struck the attacker in the chest, knocking him back into the wall. The rest of the team secured the room, and Daniel reactivated the system just in time to reroute power to the central vault. We are losing outer defenses. Lyra warned more are coming, and they are targeting one point. Daniel knew which point. She did not have to say it. We need a different plan, he said. We need to disable their ships, not destroy them. We have to send a message without starting a war across 10 systems. Lyra listened and nodded. What do you have in mind? Daniel took them to the pulse core chamber. Deep in the heart of the ship was a system designed to emit a wave of energy used for deep scans and repairs. With a few changes, it could be turned into a massive electromagnetic wave, strong enough to disable nearby ships for a short time. He worked quickly, fingers moving across control panels, adjusting circuits and syncing power nodes. Valari engineers assisted, watching closely. This is risky, Lyra said. If we misfire, we shut down our own systems too. Daniel kept working. If we do nothing, they erase everything we worked for. We have one shot. The pulse was ready. A signal was sent to all Valari ships to fall back for 5 seconds. Every second counted. Fire it, he said. The pulse shot through the void like invisible lightning. A ripple of force passed through space, flickering stars as it moved. Enemy ships sparked and spun out of control, weapons powered down, engines froze on the pier bridge of the enemy command vessel. Alarms blared and lights dimmed. The commander slammed a fist into the wall. They were not expecting this back. On the Valari ship, cheers erupted, but Daniel and Lyra remained focused. They will return, Lyra said. This was not their full force, just a test. Daniel nodded. Then we need to be ready next time. But we also need to show them something. They cannot fight with weapons. What is that? She asked Hope later. The Empress held a meeting with all high-ranking members of the Valari Council. The human has proven more than worthy, she said. He is not a tool. He is a builder of bonds. Daniel stood beside her, not as a servant, not as a prize, but as a man who had earned his place, not through strength, but through will and wisdom. From this day, he shall not walk under guard, but under stars, as a symbol of our alliance. Lyra watched from across the chamber, her expression unreadable, but her eyes proud. In the shadows beyond the known galaxy, other forces stirred, but Daniel was no longer afraid. He had faced doubt, fire, loss, and shadow. He had stood firm, and now he would help shape what came next. Storm had passed for now, but the path ahead was long and full of stars. The stars were calm again. The Black Sea above the Valari homeworld no longer showed signs of threat. No enemy ships, no warnings, no fire. Just silence and space stretching without end. Inside the Grand Chamber of Unity, a gathering took place unlike any before. Daniel stood near the central light pillar, dressed not in armor, but in ceremonial robes given to those who carried the mark of 2 bloodlines. Beside him stood Lyra, now a commander not only in rank, but in heart. The Empress had stepped down as promised, choosing to pass leadership into shared hands, one from Valari and one from Earth. The chamber was full. Warriors, scientists, teachers, children, elders. All watching. All listening. Daniel spoke clearly, letting each word carry weight, not just through the room, but through the history they were writing together. I was taken from my home by surprise. I woke among stars I did not know, and faces I could not name. At first I felt fear, then confusion, then purpose. You showed me not only your strength, but your pain, your history, your hope. He looked around the chamber, letting his gaze meet many eyes. I am not special by blood. I am not here because I won some war or led some empire. I am here because I chose to stay when I could have walked away. And I will continue to stay not as a guest, but as a father, a guide, a builder of something new. The Volari leaders nodded, their approval quiet but firm. Lyra stepped forward, holding a crystal in her hands. Inside it shimmered the pulse of life not yet born. This is the first union crystal, she said, a symbol of shared legacy. The first generation born with both strength and softness. It will not be the last. A soft sound filled the air as the crystal lifted into the air and began to glow. A symbol projected above it, showing the new emblem of unity, a star wrapped in two wings, one wide and curved, the other strong and straight. Daniel looked at the symbol and thought of all he had seen since arriving, the trials, the doubts, the attack. The faces of the young ones who had looked at him with curiosity, not fear. He thought of Earth too. A message had already been sent from the Volari, a peaceful invitation to open talks and share knowledge. Earth had responded with caution, but also curiosity. Small teams would soon travel between worlds, not for conquest, not for trade, but for learning. Later that evening, Daniel walked through one of the growing gardens near the central tower. Trees from both worlds had been planted side by side. Flowers bloomed in colors unknown on Earth. Birds from Volari sang songs that echoed through silver leaves. Children ran across the soft ground chasing one another without fear. Lyra walked beside him, quiet at first, then she spoke in a low voice. They ask about you everywhere now. Stories are told, songs are sung. Some call you the father of stars. He laughed gently, shaking his head. I only fixed broken machines. No, Lyra said, you fixed more than that. You repaired trust, you connected hearts, you gave something none of us expected. Daniel looked at her with eyes that had seen war and peace in equal measure. You gave me the same. From behind them came soft footsteps. A small voice called out, Father. Daniel turned and saw her. A little girl with hair like silver flame and eyes like deep water running toward him. He lifted her up into his arms. She giggled and rested her head on his shoulder. Lyra smiled. She is the first but not the last. Daniel nodded, his hand resting gently on the child's back. She will walk a world I could never have dreamed of, and she will never have to choose between where she comes from and where she is going. The sky above began to shift as night fell. Twin moons rose slowly, one from the west, one from the east, their light casting a soft glow over the tower, the garden, the people inside. The command hub. New paths were being drawn, star maps, updated colonies, planned not for conquest but for growth. Daniel knew there would be other challenges ahead, other voices who might resist change, other worlds that feared difference, but he no longer feared them. He had found his place not in power but in purpose, not in bloodline but in belonging. As he sat with Lyra and their daughter beneath the sky of a world once unknown, he whispered words only the stars could hear. Maybe I was never meant to stay small. Maybe this was not the end of my journey, but the beginning of all of theirs. And the stars above blinked in silence as if they agreed. The end.